So after over 2.5 years, I've completed my comic Monbud. I've learned a lot of lessons in writing this comic. A lot of them are sort of inherent to the medium as opposed to being specific to the trajectory of writing Monbud, the comic. I familiarized myself with paneling, dialogue, how I want to approach character design, how consistent I want to be with character design, coloring, shading, background design, the whole nine yards. All in all, I'm just more confident with what I want to do when I write a comic. And a realization I've had is, as a result of working on the comic, is that I don't really like working on big projects that much, or rather, I have such a restless mind that I prefer working on smaller projects just so the conveyor belt of idea to finished product is that much more efficient. There was a period of time when I stopped writing Monbud near its beginning because I had an idea for another comic, and that comic is something that you guys might have already read. It's called Sonderrock. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I've, as an artist, come to a point where I don't cringe at the stuff that I've made a year ago. And as a matter of fact, I tend to put it on a pedestal. So when I say that I'm elated by Sonderrock, and relative to that, I only find Monbud to be good, and at sometimes really good. That might only be a function of how much time I've spent away from Sonderrock and how close I am to Monbud. But materially speaking, Sonderrock had a lot of things going for it. I could implement lessons that I learned from writing the beginning of Monbud and synthesize them into this new comic. I had a lot more leverage to be visually creative because I was working on a short story as opposed to something that I was working on long term for multiple years. And the elephant in the room is that this is a hobby. I'm not doing this for money, so there are other things that I want to do creatively, and I can't keep sending out a pigeon out into the world that's a representative of my comic if there's no other pigeon that returns that says, hey, here's some money as an incentive to keep working on your comic and keep it as a priority in your life when you have other things that you'd like to do. To be clear, I never did this for money. I had two people that were consistently commenting on the comic, and that's more than enough for me. But at some point, I do have to triage and say that there are other things that I want to do artistically. In the span of the over 2.5 years that I was working on the comic, I had a lot of ideas that I sort of had to shelve or just straight up forget as a result of me working on something that took a lot of temporal real estate. There were musical projects that I wanted to do, animations that I wanted to make, editorial ideas that I intended to work on, but my mind is such that I'm not the best multitasker. Well, artistically, I have an idea that I'm working on, and that is my top priority to such an extent that everything else sort of falls by the wayside. And I don't want that to be the case anymore. I like working on a lot of stuff. I like putting out a lot of ideas. To me, the plurality of the ideas being materialized is worth it on its face. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on smaller projects. That means more stuff for you guys. It also means working more in my wheelhouse. I enjoyed working on Monbud. But irrespective of the actual quality of the comic, there's the tug of war of me being a restless creative and at the same time working on something that doesn't allow me to work on any other things. And that's not conducive to me being able to actualize all the ideas that I have. Even in regards to a single work, I like Monbud, and I'm proud of myself for having created a complete narrative, regardless of how straightforward it is, regardless of how many creative visualizations I have to leave by the wayside. I don't regret working on this comic because I learned a lot about how I function as an artist, and that lends itself to being a strong foundation to being able to work better in the creative paradigm that I've found to be more effective for myself. So here's to 2 comics done, and then here's to maybe more done in the future.